tonight we're talking about financing this Lotus Emira. If you guys saw my previous videos on whether or not you can afford a car or whether or not you should finance a vehicle, I mentioned that I was going back and forth whether or not I should finance the Lotus Emira. I decided to finance it, and I got 4.75% on 36 months with about $15,000-ish down. And just to give you the numbers real quick, the monthly payment is right around $3,000. The down payment, I did essentially all of it credit card, minus the trade-in value of my GR86, which was something like $6,000. And everything else is financed. So the reason I decided to finance is because 4.75% is lower than the rate that I'm getting with my high yield savings account. I'm getting 5.5% currently at Wealthfront. Also do Vanguard's money market account. Those are the two main things I do. And with Wealthfront, when you refer a friend, you get a boost. So normally it's 5% right now. I'm at 5.5%, which is greater than 4.75. Now it's not a huge spread, but there's also the time value of money. There's the opportunity, like in case something comes up with my business and I want to have extra dry powder, then I can tap into that rather than having all that money locked up in the value of the vehicle that I can't easily liquidate unless I sell it. So that's why. The reason I did 36 months at 4.75% and have such a high monthly payment is because I don't want to pay a lot of interest. So I could do 48 or 60 or whatever, but now my interest rate is higher, and the total amount of interest I pay, I'm no longer getting the benefit by having that spread between the 4.75 to 5.5. Now the other thing is some people in the previous video said, oh, you should always finance because in the stock market, you're gonna make 7, 8, 9, 10, 11%. That's a fallacy. So you have two sides of the spectrum. You have one side that's cash only because cars are depreciating assets, and they're missing the nuance that, hey, you can make a profit on your loan if your loan is a low enough rate and you have great credit and you're financially disciplined and you're investing that money, those things, mathematically optimal, right? And then there's the other side, which is the opposite, saying, hey, you should always finance because in the stock market, you're gonna get 10%. They're both wrong. So the reason that latter group is wrong is because you're not always gonna be getting 10% in the stock market. Yes, over the long term, the average long term is great. Adjusted for inflation, it's something like 7-ish, 8-ish%. Fantastic. However, your car loan is a relatively short-term investment. You see what I'm saying? Over a 6-year spread, a 3-year spread, an 8-year spread, 5-year spread, whatever your car loan term is, you don't know if the stock market is going to go up or down. Therefore, that money that you could pay cash with your vehicle or invest, you might actually get less after that time period because that loan, you're essentially getting a negative return, right? Negative 4.75 for me right now. By paying off that loan, I have a guaranteed rate, zero risk, 4.75%. In a high yield savings account, it's essentially zero risk, except the rate may change. So if I really want to lock it in, I got to do a CD, right? So but it's like essentially no risk on my money. I'm getting some level of return. Sure, the rate may go down, but I'm not losing money. Stock market, there is much more risk. It's a lot. It's not a lot compared to things like crypto or whatever, but there's risk. You're not guaranteed to go up over 5 or 6 years like you are with a high yield savings account. So for the money that I would use for a vehicle, I'm not investing it in the stock market because look at the lost decade, 2010 to 2000 to 2010 roughly, where if you invested in 2000, you would only be making dividends, but the actual value of the stock didn't reach the same level until like 10 years later, a lost decade. So anyways, I decided to finance and not pay cash. And I think that fun vehicles like these, you should only ever buy if you are able to have that option of saying, hey, I could pay cash or I could finance. And then make the optimal decision for you based on the numbers. If the rates were 6, 7, 8%, I'd be like, fuck it, I'm pay cash. But I don't think you should rely on financing to allow you to get more car than you otherwise would if you had to pay cash. I think that's a pretty good rule of thumb. Either, you should be able to, when people say, oh, you should be able to buy it twice, that's a f***ing stupid rule, man, because if you have if you have the assets that you can liquidate, you know, your investments, etc. No. I think that going based on a percentage of your income or a percentage of your net worth, I think those are much more sensible, logical, and scalable solutions rather than saying, oh, you got to be able to buy it twice in cash. Yeah, a lot of people are sitting on way too much cash, losing money to inflation. And yeah, there's I bonds, but like, I mean, I even liquidated my I bonds recently because the rates are garbage now. They're like 3%. A year or two ago, they were like 9% because inflation was a lot higher, right? So the key thing here is people like to speak in black and white. They don't like nuance. Nuance is difficult. Nuance is hard. It requires a lot of thinking. I used to think it was just about lazy thinking, but what I've learned recently, based on the literature, is that it actually comes down to in-group, out-group. People like to say, hey, this is my group, this is my tribe, I agree with them, what they say, and everyone else, they're all wrong. You see that in politics, you see that even with simple things like buying a car. Because people are too lazy in thinking and too tribal to actually get into the nitty-gritty nuance. And if you are willing to get into that nitty-gritty nuance and be curious and be eager to learn, and there's a joy in learning, guys. I mean, if you're watching this channel, you actually probably already know that. Because you're probably a nerdy guy or girl that loves learning about driving dynamics and yada, yada, yada. But if you're willing to explore that nuance, life is so much richer. You actually truly understand things. Something controversial. If you identify with a political party, I would wager a bet you probably are just following the groupthink and not making each decision for yourself. Did you really make that decision on abortion, being pro or con? Did you really make that decision on guns, pro or con? Or do your beliefs just follow the pattern of your group because you're relying on the in-group, out-group? Do you like to just say things are all good or all bad and not really talk about the nuance, the gray area, because it's just easier? Ever since I was young, I have these memories from the 9th grade where abortion was a hot topic back then too. And I always found it weird how people, like, they just were so confident in their decision. I was like, wait, I want to understand both sides. I want to know the pros and the cons. I want to hear both arguments and then make my own decision. But I have a lot of friends who just are like far left or far right, and they just have everything that the Republican or Democratic Party says. They're like, yes, I agree with that. That's the truth. And that's not right. That's not the best way to live your life. It's not the best way to approach financing a car or paying cash or how much car you can afford and how much you can't. Like, be open to different interpretations. I've changed my mind on this many times. I probably will change my mind in the future. So I've heard a lot of different people have a lot of different rules and suggestions about it. And I think a lot of them are pretty idiotic. But if someone has a different take and an intelligent argument as to why that take is a better way of thinking of things, I'd love to hear it. Because I want to learn and improve and grow as well. Anyway, my friends, tell me why you agree or disagree down below. Much love. See you on the next one.